Hello, class. My name is Timmy Nguyen, and I'll be presenting my ethics studies final project. I'll be interviewing my close family friend Christine Nguyen, and I hope you enjoy. Welcome, ethics studies class. My name is Timmy Nguyen, and I'll be interviewing my close family friend Christine Nguyen. Hi, Christine. It's kind of great to see you again. Do you mind introducing yourself a little bit to the audience?
Hi, my name is Christine Nguyen. I am from Rhode Island originally. I moved to California by myself at 15 years old, and I graduated from UCLA. Currently, I work at Activision as a production assistant.
So, as far as I'm aware, you were born in Missouri, and like you said, you moved to Rhode Island where you kind of stayed for the first 15 years of your life. Um, what was your experience like as an Asian American living in a predominantly white suburb? Did you ever feel kind of excluded or discriminated against? And you can talk about the positives or negatives, either or both.
I think for me personally, there was a lot of internalized racism without realizing it, just because I did become the token Asian, in that
Mhm.
everything relating to rice was associated with me. My friends would make Asian jokes, but I was in on it. So at the time, I didn't really view it as being racist. Even at one time, one of my friends, she told me as a joke, like, "Oh, hey, Chris, do you know why Asians have small eyes?" And I said, "Why?" And she told me, "Oh, it's because they have a farm where they make the Asian kids stare at the sun and their eyes get squinty over time." And like at the time, I didn't find that offensive at all. I thought like it was a joke. But looking back on it now, like I don't see what's so funny about it whatsoever. And I
Mhm.
was never actively discriminated against, but there was a lot of microaggression without me realizing at the time it was microaggression.
I think what's very interesting about Christine's first answer about her experience as an Asian American in predominantly white areas is that she kind of described herself as the token Asian, and that that meant that she was always kind of the blunt of all the rice jokes, as she said. And she told her one anecdote about that one joke about her eyes. And although she did say she didn't experience a lot of blatant or yeah, like, a lot of blatant and very discriminatory racism, she did see it as a lot of internalized and a lot of internalized racism and a lot of microaggression. Essentially, you'd always hear these small jabs here and there, very small but constant. And while this isn't as bad as maybe some people would get it, it just kind of puts the historical context of being Asian in America into perspective. Essentially, that since the fact that she was Asian in a white area, she would always kind of be different, always kind of be treated differently, even small. Like she was still would never be a white person. Kind of racism. But with that, you kind of said that you kind of participated in it yourself. But did you ever feel like your Asian heritage was ever being threatened in that sense, or really did you like just kind of feel the need to assimilate to the white culture when it came to like your school or social life?
A lot of the media we consumed, especially like in Rhode Island, there's not much like, Asian representation at all, had predominantly like white people. So one of my biggest influences and like idols when I was younger was actually Ashley Tisdale from High School Musical and The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. And
Yeah, yeah.
she was a stereotypical like blonde, pretty girl. When I grew up, I wanted to be blonde so bad. I genuinely wanted to be blonde, but I never viewed that as me wanting to be white. I just viewed it having those white features as being more
Hmm.
desired, but I never particularly wanted to be Caucasian or anything. And eventually over time when I got into K-pop, I started really embracing my Asian culture, but not necessarily Vietnamese culture. It was more Korean culture just because K-pop at least gave Asian representation. It gave the image that Asians were highly desirable, we were successful, good looking, etc. And for a while, I strived to be like those people, even if it didn't necessarily represent my Vietnamese people.
So her response here is actually one of my favorite of hers, and it kind of centers around the desire or lack thereof to kind of assimilate to the white culture. She cited a very large lack of Asian representation in Rhode Island, and with her external influence being predominantly white, she kind of reluctantly kind of felt the need to really tap into a white culture. She said that she really never felt the desire to take on the identity of a Caucasian person, no desire to eat American food or listen to American music, except that she didn't want to have the blonde hair of Ashley Tisdale, and I find that just really funny. Yeah, and she kind of also said that K-pop was kind of a big inspiration in her life, and that's where she really like kind of grasped into her Asian roots. But as we kind of relate this back to Erica Lee's "The Making of Asian America," it kind of reminds me of this one passage I read about the Japanese or the Nisei, and how despite them really trying to maintain their culture within their communities, immigrant leaders urge their country or quote unquote urge their countrymen to slave to American customs of wearing only Western style clothing and celebrating American holidays from Lee chapter 5. And with that, we kind of see that, kind of see how Christine kind of reflects it as well. That where she, wants to maintain her Asian heritage, yet, kind of her external influences are telling her that, she kind of needs to assimilate to that white culture. And I find that dynamic and that kind of that parallel between the two very interesting. So I guess kind of going back on the dynamic between like Rhode Island versus California. In my course, there's a big underlying theme of America kind of being kind of a gold mountain, kind of a symbol of prosperity and opportunity. I know you're from Rhode Island, so you're not exactly like non-American, but I guess California can kind of be seen as like kind of gold mountain, kind of like a this mountain of prosperity. Did that influence your move here at all? And um, how's that like opportunity affected you at least? The opportunity.
California gave me so many more opportunities than Rhode Island ever could, just because Rhode Island is, you probably know, one of the smallest states.
Yeah,
Like, no, it is actually the
I think it is
smallest
the
state.
smallest state. Yeah.
There's nothing much there. Like, even like business wise, it's not a very interesting, economically rich, or really anything state. And California just gave me so many more opportunities, whether it be education, work. Had I stayed in Rhode Island, I genuinely believe I would not have done much with my life. Even all of my cousins who lived in Rhode Island, the ones who ended up doing something with their lives, they moved to Boston or New York. None of them stayed in Rhode Island. And even some of them now, they're considering moving to California just because there's so many more opportunities over here. And even my own younger brother has wanted to move here for a while too, for job opportunities that he can't get in Rhode Island.
Mhm. All right, due to time constraints, obviously I can't include the entirety of it. Basically, I just kind of covered over, um, the portion of her going over to California. But I did posit kind of this, an underlying theme of our course is America is seen as this, land of opportunity, kind of the gold mountain, as we kind of learned in chapter 3 of the making of Asian America. So I posited her how California kind of affected her decision to move over here, kind of California being seen as the land of opportunity, within America. And I think her answer is very interesting because she said that overwhelmingly, yes, that California is the land of opportunity. And that she stayed in Rhode Island, she would have done nothing. And it's almost exactly like the Chinese, Japanese, and Korean, etc. that came before her. Those same people kind of said the same thing that their motherland had nothing more to offer to them, and that America, the Chinese stated this in quotes that money's in great plenty and to spare in America, as stated from Lee chapter 3. And my cousin kind of sees that same opportunity, just kind of substitute America for California. And once again, we kind of see a parallel between how she's taking that opportunity, and that she's like 100 years later is having a similar experience to that of the the Chinese, Japanese that came before her over a century ago. It's funny. But yeah.
Mhm.
I think that is that'll be the end of our interview. Once again, thank you for coming on. If you want to just kind of say your name again, and just give a goodbye to the audience. Thank you so much for coming here.
Okay, my name is Christine Nguyen, and thank you for having me, Timmy, and thank you for the audience for listening.
All right.